Hey, welcome to another episode of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike. This is my collection. And in this episode, which is episode 19, this is just going to be another general episode where I talk a little bit about everything. So I'll talk about the movies I've seen, the comic books I've read, the toys I've purchased, and some news that has come out in the past week or two. The last time I did one of these general episodes was episode 12, and that currently has 12 views. So I don't know if this is really the type of video people are looking for, but hopefully as I get more subscribers, this will be the kind of thing people might tune in and watch. I don't want to strictly do toy reviews. As I mentioned in my very first episode, which again, not too many people have watched, but I talked about some of my influences that prompted me to do this in the first place. And one of them is a YouTube show called Nerd Out, with a K at the start. And that's just two guys sitting in front of their toy collections, talking about whatever. Their episodes run like an hour or so. And that's really kind of what I wanted to emulate. But since I didn't really have any luck having somebody that wanted to do this with me on a regular basis, I didn't have anybody to bounce things off of. So it's kind of hard to do just an hour of chit-chatting about whatever by yourself. So I kind of leaned into just doing reviews and whatnot. But I would like to do more episodes like this. So if you're not interested in just kind of a general chatty episode, which I hope will, I'll try and keep it under 20 minutes or so. I'd like to do these fairly regularly. So yeah, if this isn't your thing, just you can skip this one and come back for my next review. But yeah, I hope you stick around and watch. I also asked in my last video what you guys feel about the length of these videos, as my reviews have been running about a half hour to 40 minutes sometimes, and I don't know if that's a little long. Maybe I should break things up and not review so many toys in one video. So if you're watching this one, feel free to comment on that and let me know your thoughts. Otherwise, I've been doing this now for about a month, and I'm pretty happy with the response I've got. The Masters of the Universe Club Grayskull Wave 3 video that I did is my most watched video. I'm up to 419 views on that video, and that seems good to me. I have no idea, for somebody that's just talking about toys, and I don't know how you guys are finding me necessarily, but yeah, that's great to have that many views, because a lot of my videos have about 50 views or so, and I was pretty happy with that. So yeah, to have over 400 on that Masters of the Universe review, that's pretty awesome. So thanks to everybody that's been watching. I want to shout out a couple of people that have been commenting, because I've been asking for comments on every video. I haven't been getting a whole lot, but Kira from Uruguay has been throwing me lots of comments, which I appreciate. A guy named Pensive Ruin, he's been commenting, and he's also been checking me out on Instagram, which I hope you guys all do. It's Mike's Collection Halifax on Instagram. And also there's another guy, I don't know if his name is unclassified or he just hasn't picked a name, and that's the generic name they've given him. But anyway, he's been throwing me lots of comments too. So thanks to all you guys and to everybody else. So yeah, keep them coming. So I'll start this general episode with just some news that has to do with the nerdy stuff that I'm into. So most of it you guys have probably heard from other sources, so I'll just throw in my 2 cents. The Disney Fox merger just got finalized like yesterday. So that's official that Disney has bought Fox. So all those Fox characters like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and all the side characters that are tied to that, like Deadpool and Silver Surfer, they're all now going to be under the Disney umbrella, so they can all join the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I think is pretty awesome. Because yeah, I'm just not excited by Fox's X-Men movies. Their Fantastic Four movies, the first 2 were a little campy, but okay, I didn't mind them. But then that last one they did, wasn't feeling it at all. I don't think they know what to do with it. So I'm happy that Marvel has these things back, and hopefully they're all going to be awesome. And it makes me feel a little better knowing that guys like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, I think those guys are planning on leaving. This Avengers Endgame might even be the final movie for some of them. So I was a little worried if we were losing those main characters and they were going to try and replace them with, low-level characters like the Young Avengers or something. But knowing that now we can have the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, that really breathes some life into the next couple of waves of Marvel Cinematic Universe. So yeah, that's awesome. Also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Disney has rehired James Gunn to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I think is great. I had been enjoying James Gunn's movies for, a couple of years before he got brought on to do Guardians, and then he became huge, and those movies were very successful for him. Then there was some Twitter controversy a couple months ago, and they kicked him off the third one, so he couldn't finish his trilogy. Anyway, I'm glad to see that cooler heads have prevailed, and they've brought him back on. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Also, I want to like the DC movies. I haven't been that impressed with them thus far. I know Justice League was disappointing as far as box office and even as far as content, but I actually enjoyed Justice League more than I think anything else they've done. I liked it more than Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, Batman vs. Superman, all of which were pretty bad. I didn't really love Wonder Woman either. I thought she made a good Wonder Woman, but I thought especially the third act of that movie was bleh. So, so I didn't mind Justice League. And to my surprise, I actually quite liked Ezra Miller's take on The Flash. He seemed like kind of a weird choice when they cast him, but I liked him a lot in a movie called Perks of Being a Wallflower from a couple of years prior. So I thought, I'll give him a chance, and I liked him as Flash. He brought in some good, comic relief. And anyway, so his Flash movie's been, all kinds of issues over the last couple of years. It was supposed to be made, I don't know how many times. I think it's changed directors like 5 or 6 times now. Anyway, apparently he is going to be rewriting a draft of the script himself with Grant Morrison. So, I don't know about Ezra's writing ability, but Grant Morrison can write a pretty good comic book. So, obviously Ezra seems passionate about the character, so I'm excited to see what they can do together. So yeah, that's it, I think, for movie-related news. For toys, not a whole lot that I can think of in the last little while that got me excited. Walgreens revealed what their next Marvel Legend exclusive was going to be. And it's not really a surprise because they've done the Fantastic Four for the last bunch of figures. They had exclusives of the Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman. They did some of the Inhumans like Medusa. So, I figured Doctor Doom was around the corner. And so that's who they've announced as their next exclusive. But it's actually the infamous Iron Man version of Doctor Doom. If you don't follow comic books, a couple of years ago, after this world-altering event called Secret Wars, which I guess was Secret Wars 4 at this point. Anyway, Doctor Doom, his face was sealed up, and he had a change of heart, and he decided to take on the role of Iron Man because Tony Stark was out of commission for a while. I didn't read the series, but it was Doctor Doom in a suit of armor that was kind of more Iron Man than Doctor Doom, but he still wore like a green cloak, and it was an interesting look. And so that's the figure we're getting from Walgreens, and it's a cool figure, but I hope we get a classic Doctor Doom soon. Also in toy news, the annual He-Man convention is called PowerCon, and every year they have PowerCon exclusives. Some of them are kind of odds and ends. I got some from last year. I got them behind me here somewhere. Yeah, so here's a PowerCon exclusive. So this has got just a mishmash of parts. He's got Whiplash's head and Trapjaw's arm, and I think Mosquito's legs, maybe. So this guy came in a 3-pack of a couple of mishmash guys, and they were based on some unreleased figures in the 80s or some concept art. So these are the kind of exclusives that I like, in that for the real hardcore fans, it's something out there that, they wouldn't put in stores or anything like that. But at the same time, if you're a casual collector and you don't feel like paying the crazy prices to get these con exclusives, you won't feel your collection is really lacking if you're missing this guy. I can't even remember what they named him, but I thought they were cool. So yeah, I bought one of the 2 3-packs they had at PowerCon last year. And so this year's PowerCon exclusives, they have a few of them, but the ones that I'm interested in are a 3-pack that has a good ninja, I guess, and his name is Slamurai, and he looks to be mostly repainted of Ninjor. And again, he comes from some concept art, or unreleased figure. I can't remember his exact origins. And there's also 2 Snake Men / Horde Troopers. And yeah, so they're just kind of generic troop builders, and they look pretty cool. The prices might deter me from ordering them, but yeah, you never know. Also, there is kind of a green translucent zombie He-Man, which this is based on, I believe, the packaging art for the 80s when there was the slime pit and this green goop poured all over He-Man, and he turned into this, I don't know, mind-controlled green zombie or something. So that's what this figure is. And again, not a figure you need in your collection by any means, but he looks pretty cool. And he's a little more reasonably priced than the 3-pack. So if I skip the 3-pack, maybe I'll go with Zombie He-Man. Another cool thing this week is HasLab, which is Hasbro's kind of crowd-funded website. They pitched their first idea maybe a year and a half ago, where they said if we could get enough people to pay in advance, like just like a Kickstarter, they would make Jabba's sail barge, which is that big big ship at the start of Return of the Jedi. And it got funded, and it got made, and it got shipped out. I didn't order one. They were $500 American, which would probably cost me about $700 to $800 Canadian, and the shipping would be crazy, I'm sure, because the box is gigantic. If you're interested in seeing it, there's dozens of YouTube videos on there of people unboxing their Jabba's sail barge. The guys over at Nerd Out have a video that I enjoyed watching them unpack it. Pixel Dan is another guy I like to watch, and he has a video up. But yeah, there's tons of them out there, so check that out because it's a really cool looking toy. I'm envious, but yeah, even if it was affordable, I don't have room for that thing. I've heard some people speculate that Hasbro might try and do the Flag, which is the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, as their next HasLab. That's completely speculation. But even that, like, I'm much more of a G.I. Joe guy than a Star Wars guy, but I have no place for a 6-foot aircraft carrier, so I'd probably have to pass on that too. But still, pretty cool. So the last little bit of toy news that I want to talk about is a new Kickstarter that's going to be kicking off at the end of April. Now, I've backed a few toy Kickstarters in the past, such as the Mythic Legions line, which is produced by the Four Horsemen, the Vitruvian Hacks, which is made by a company called Boss Fight Studio, the Marauder Task Force and Marauder Valkyries, which is made by Marauder Gunrunners. And yeah, there have been maybe a couple smaller ones too, but those are the big ones I've backed. And I've been really satisfied with all the product that I've got from all these Kickstarters. So another one that's going to be launching soon is called Action Force, which has some relationship to G.I. Joe, because Action Force was the name of the G.I. Joe toy line overseas. And I guess Hasbro let that licensing, the trademark on that name, lapse. And so this gentleman named Bobby Valla has taken up that name, and he's doing a line of military figures. Now this guy has some clout in the toy industry. He has worked at Hasbro, and he worked on G.I. Joe, some of the figures I've shown you. He worked on Marvel Legends. So yeah, he knows what he's doing, presumably. And he's been showing some concept art, which I'll put up here. And, it looks pretty neat. It's kind of G.I. Joe-esque, except it's in 6-inch scale. Because I guess he's done his research, and that seems to be the scale that people want. And online, I've seen people saying, look, it looks really cool, but it's not my scale. I'm a G.I. Joe guy. I like 3 3/4. And fair enough, I guess, if you feel that way. But as you can see, I collect a little bit of everything, and I hope some of those guys that are being a little closed-minded about the scale, or people always find things to complain about. If you go to some of the websites where Bobby Valla is showing this artwork, and you can go to his website directly. It's vallaverse.com, and I recommend you do, and I hope you guys back this if this is the kind of thing you're interested in. But yeah, there's a lot of haters out there. People are finding all kinds of things to complain about. But yeah, I think it looks great. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more of the reveals and seeing what the stretch goals are once he gets the actual Kickstarter set up, which is scheduled for the end of April. So yeah. So having said that, let's maybe take a quick look at the new toys I got this week. So I'll flip things around here, and yeah, we'll take a look at those. Okay, so the first new thing I've got in the last week or so are some 90s X-Men toys. So my friend and coworker Amy told me that she was over at her parents' house and they were cleaning up and they found her brother's old X-Men toys. And yeah, she asked me if I wanted any, so I said, well, yeah, sure, bring them in. Now, she was planning on giving them to her boyfriend's kids, so I didn't feel right just taking the whole bag, so I grabbed a couple of choice figures to take for myself. So there's Cullen, or whatever his name was, from Excalibur. This is the Brood Queen. This is Bonebreaker, one of the Reavers. There's Shatterstar from X-Force. Then we got Chode, one of the Star Jammers. And then this random dude, whose name is Random. And so I was taking a lot of oddball characters that aren't really mainstream, but then I couldn't help but take Wolverine as well. Partly because he's got this weird removable little mask, which they even advertise doubles as a ring. So yeah, I guess I can wear my Wolverine ring. But yeah, so these guys were kind of fun. So I doubt Amy's watching this, but thank you, Amy, for bringing these in for me. So next up, I got a bunch of Pops. So here you'll see Buzz Lightyear. And I got Chef from South Park. And Amphibian Man from The Shape of Water. So that's kind of a random threesome of characters. But my local comic shop, Strange Adventures, had a buy two get one free sale on. And honestly, I tend not to buy my Pops from Strange Adventures just because they're a little bit more expensive than my local EB Games, which is like a GameStop here in Canada. So I buy most of them from the GameStop. But they don't have everything. They tend to carry the most current stuff. Meanwhile, the comic shop has some older stuff. So yeah, this Buzz Lightyear, I think he's been kicking around for a while. And who doesn't love Toy Story? And yeah, so this was where I picked those guys up, and they're all pretty cool. I also got the three guys from the movie Office Space, like Lumbergh and Milton and Peter. But I brought those guys into work, so I don't have them to show you here. They're on my work desk. And then I got some Pacific Rim figures. Just the other day, I posted a full video review of all the Pacific Rim Uprising figures, so I've already talked about these guys in detail, so I'll just be quick here in case you didn't watch that video. So there is the Kaiju drone. This here is November Ajax. Here is Guardian Alpha. And this is Valor Omega, which is probably my favorite of the bunch, even though this guy barely appeared in the movie. But yeah, pretty cool looking figure. And these are my first ones from NECA. All the other Jaeger figures I had were from Bandai, so I wasn't sure how these guys would turn out. But they turned out pretty cool. They're very detailed, very posable. So yeah, not bad. And lastly, I have these two guys. These are a couple odds and ends I picked up from another local comic shop around here called Giant Robot Comics. And they're a good shop in that they have a ton of loose figures in cabinets, which is something Strange Adventures doesn't really focus on. They tend to just sell newer stuff. But over at Giant Robot, they take a ton of trade-ins, and they have multiple cabinets full of just random old stuff. And so I don't buy a ton of DC figures, but I am a big Green Lantern fan. And I've got versions of all the other Green Lanterns, like Hal and Kyle, and I didn't have Guy Gardner. So even though I would maybe have preferred a Green Lantern version of Guy Gardner, this is him when he was briefly a Red Lantern, and it's a pretty cool figure. Especially the fact that he comes with a red light construct chainsaw, which is pretty neat. And yeah, he's just a little more interesting on my shelf maybe as a Red Lantern, because I already have a bunch of various Green Lanterns. So yeah, this figure's from a couple of years ago from DC Direct. And yeah, so he was a good find for $10. And then I also got this figure, which is from, I believe, 1992 or something. Or sometime in the very early 90s. This is from the second wave of McFarlane Toys when he was doing the Spawn figures. So this is Bedrock or Badrock. And he was from the Youngblood comic by Rob Liefeld. And yeah, this is a toy which I didn't buy it at the time. I thought it was a cool looking toy way back in the 90s. I remember when this came out. But I thought the Youngblood comic book was kind of dumb, and I guess maybe that's why I didn't buy this. And funnily enough, I was in Montreal about a year ago, and I came across this thing in a toy store in Montreal, and I picked them up, and I was eyeballing them, and my buddy Miguel was trying to convince me. He's like, yeah, pick it up if you think it's cool. And I ended up not wanting to carry it around, so I didn't bother to pick it up then. And I kind of had forgotten about it. But then I saw it at Giant Robot the other day and thought, yeah, that is a neat looking figure, so what the hell? For $10, why not? So yeah, this is Batroc. Okay, so those are my new purchases from the past week or two since I last did one of these episodes. So next we'll go into a segment that I introduced on episode 12. So this is Flick Chat. We'll talk movies. Flick Chat. So I've only been to the theater, I think, once since that last episode. There hasn't been a whole lot coming out that I've been excited to see. But I went and saw Captain Marvel, of course. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's not one that like blew my mind or anything. I'm not going to go see it in theaters a second time. But I'll definitely pick it up when it comes on Blu-ray. Probably not as soon as it comes out on Blu-ray. I'll probably wait on it for a while. But that's not a knock on the movie. I just try not to buy every movie as soon as it comes out anymore. It just gets a little expensive. Usually if you wait a month or two, it's dropped by $10. And so, yeah, if it was like a Captain America movie or something, Spider-Man, I would be there day one to buy the Blu-ray. But this one here, just to put it in perspective of how I felt about it, I'll wait until it's dropped in price a little bit. I won't get into spoiling it. I assume most people that would watch a video like this have probably already seen Captain Marvel by now. But yeah, I think it was, it was fun. The characters were handled well. There were some surprises. Like, I didn't expect to care about the Skrulls. Like, I saw the Skrull action figure, for sale before seeing the movie, and I don't even know if I knew Ben Mendelsohn was playing one of the Skrulls, but I saw the Skrull design. I was like, doesn't really interest me that much. But I thought he did such a great job playing the main Skrull character that I think I probably will pick up that figure now. Yeah, he was great. Brie was really good. Sam Jackson was really good. It was funny. So yeah, not perfect, but yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. It's and I'm glad it's doing well too, because there's it's got a lot of bad press for whatever reason. People seem to want to hate on that movie, and I checked just before coming on here, and it's done over 800 million now, and it's been out for 2 weeks. So it's on par to do better than Wonder Woman and Spider-Man. Yeah, it's doing very well. So I'm glad to see that. So that was the only thing I saw in theaters. Otherwise, I've just been watching stuff on Netflix. I'll throw out a couple of things to you. Maybe check these out if you want some recommendations. So if you guys have seen the movie The Witch, if you haven't seen it, I recommend that. I'm pretty sure it's still on Netflix. But me and my buddy Miguel, along with my buddies Guy and Ryan, we went and saw The Witch in theaters a while back. And I remember Ryan and Guy hated it, but me and Miguel loved it. Partly because it was so uncomfortable. It's creepy, it's scary, it's it makes your skin crawl, and not in a Friday the 13th scary kind of way. It's just psychologically, it's just kind of, you were thinking about it for days afterwards. And so me and Miguel have kind of realized we like to be freaked out by these weird movies. And so I recently recommended that he watch Mother on Netflix. Again, I don't know if I'm necessarily recommending these movies because they're not for everybody, but Mother was a total head fuck. And I after I watched it, I was like, Miguel, you got to watch this crazy movie. And so he did, and he agreed that it was nuts. Anyway, so then the other day he texted me and he's like, dude, you got to watch Hereditary on Netflix, which I didn't have any interest in really. I thought it was kind of a standard haunted house movie, but it was pretty freaky too, kind of uncomfortable. And I watched it 3 or 4 days ago and I'm still thinking about it. So yeah, maybe check out Hereditary, Mother, and The Witch. They're all freaky, scary movies. I also watched 8th Grade, which was kind of cute. It's about 8th grade, and maybe not the kind of thing I would have thought to watch, but it had some good press, and I think kind of what I'd heard about it is that it's very authentic to being in 8th grade. And that's what watching it, that's what I felt. And so in that way, I couldn't relate to it at all. Just the way the characters talked, and they're all glued to their phones. It's clearly a different generation than me, but it felt authentic. And so if you were a parent of somebody in 8th grade and you want to know what's going on in their life, I feel this could be kind of eye-opening to watch 8th grade. And, I've watched a few little teeny bopper movies in the last little while. I watched The Edge of 17 and Love, Simon, and they were both good too. But this one just felt like real life people. Kind of like, not as extreme, obviously, but if you haven't seen the movie Kids, that was a movie from the 90s that, like, totally different than any teen romantic comedy that was there. And Kids just kind of felt so real. Like, they cast real people, and kids were swearing and smoking joints, and it was just probably very eye-opening to parents that thought, like, oh shit, this is really what kids are doing in this day and age. And that's kind of what 8th grade felt like to me, except, a little more suburban. So yeah, it's worth checking out. What else did I see? I watched the series Afterlife with Ricky Gervais. I'm a big Ricky Gervais fan, and so is my fiancée Vanessa. So that's the kind of thing we can both just hunker down. We watched the whole series in a night. It was only 6 episodes. But yeah, if you haven't watched any of his shows, like we both discovered him watching The Office, but also there was Extras, and more recently Derek on Netflix, and now Afterlife. And Afterlife, it's definitely got some funny bits in it, but it's more of a drama. It can be kind of dark at times, but he writes he can write a very sweet story despite the comedy and the sadness. So yeah, highly recommend it. 3 hours, you can get through the whole series. And most of his series, he only does 2 seasons. I get the feeling this is only going to be 1 season anyway, so it's not a big investment of your time. So yeah, check that out. And yeah, I think that's it for movies. I'll just tag this on at the end. I saw something kind of cool yesterday. I went to Dalhousie University, which is located here in Halifax. And the law school portion of that was putting on a mock trial, which is something they do for the public every year, I guess, where they take somebody from fiction and they have their law students take different sides and defend. And so I had heard about this on the radio the other day, so I thought I'll have to go check it out because they were doing Dracula. I've guessed in the past they've done The Hobbit and they did Willy Wonka, but those wouldn't have been really up my alley anyway. But I'm a big fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel, and the various movies and all that stuff. So yeah, it was played for laughs, but it was pretty cool. So not that you guys can go see it, so I don't really know why I'm recommending it. I just feel like telling somebody about it. It was pretty neat. So yeah, the people that put that on at Dalhousie, it made for a fun night out. So let's move on to comic books.
Comic booking.
So I just quickly want to tell you about the comic books I've picked up in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if this segment will be something I can do forever because I tend to buy the same stuff week after week. Every now and again there's something new and interesting, but I can't keep talking about, Spider-Man every week. But I did get the newest issue of Amazing Spider-Man, which is the kickoff of the Hunted series about Kraven the Hunter there. And this is written by Nick Spencer and with art by Ramos. So even though I love Ramos's art, I think I could safely say I'm not a fan of Spencer's Spider-Man. I've liked some stuff he'd done in the past. He did a series about Spider-Man's enemies, and it was kind of written to be funny, and I didn't mind that for that type of book because it was just kind of an offshoot. It was off in its own little world type of thing. But I didn't like what he was doing with Captain America, and now I don't really like what he's doing with Spider-Man. He's kind of paying an homage to the famous comic book Kraven's Last Hunt, which I loved when I was a kid and still love it now. But this just feels it's leaning into it a little too much, and just some of the stuff he's doing is silly. I don't want to spoil it too much if you haven't read any yet. But besides this issue that launched, there's been a couple issues leading up to it, kind of like a prequel. And one of the things they've done is Kraven has a son now who's supposed to be like Kraven, except he's even more badass. But Kraven has already had 2 sons and a daughter, because spoiler alert for a story from 30 years ago, but at the end of Kraven's Last Hunt, Kraven killed himself. And then, other creators came on, and I'm sure they wanted to use the character of Kraven. I don't know if it was an editorial decision to say, no, he's dead, and it was a good storyline, so leave that alone, but you can come up with something new. So they said, okay, well, how about Kraven had a long-lost son? So they gave us this character called the Grim Hunter, who was similar to Kraven, but looked pretty different. He had a ponytail and all this stuff. And I don't know if fans didn't like him or whatever. I was impartial, but anyway, they killed him off. And then they brought in another long-lost son, and he looked just like Kraven, and his name is Kraven, so that was fine. But for some reason, though, they still killed him off. And then they found a long-lost daughter, and she's still running around. But in this storyline, Kraven clones himself, and this kid grows up really fast because of the cloning process. So now he has a perfect clone of himself, who's his son, who's a younger, stronger version of himself. And when I'm reading it, my eyes are rolling and I'm groaning. I'm like, we've done this so many times. Couldn't you have just at least used one of the already established sons rather than give us another one? It's just dumb. And yeah, I find a lot of the characters in here aren't behaving the way I feel they should be behaving. And not loving it. Besides the regular books, that was issue 17. They're also putting out these little middle issues. You see, this is issue 16.hu, which is for Hunted. So there already was a regular 16, and this 16.hu is supposed to be a little in-between issue. And so there's going to be 4 of these, and they're focusing on specific characters. So this issue here, as you can maybe tell by the cover, is focusing on the Black Cat. And the Black Cat is one of my all-time favorite characters. And, it's nice to get an issue that focuses solely on her. But even still, not loving it. It's written by Nick Spencer as well. And maybe it's just because it's part of this whole silly storyline, which I'm not feeling. But, I don't really recommend it. Also, in Spider-Man, in my previous video where I talked about comic books, I told you how they launched this new book called Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So this is issue 4. I think maybe last time I talked about it, I'd read the first 2 issues, maybe just the first 1. But yeah, so I've read 4 issues now, and not liking it. As I mentioned before, this book was, I think, kind of sold to us saying that this is going to be more of a neighborhood, down-to-earth Spider-Man. And it has not been that at all. The first issue, he ended up, some lady dumped some alien-looking kids on his lap and said, Spider-Man, watch my children. And then he was trying to find their mother, and that brought him underground to the center of the earth, where they found a replica of New York called Under York. And now the people of Under York have come up to the Earth's surface to fight. It's stupid. I don't like it, and I'm not really liking the art on this thing. So really, there's not much reason for me to stick around. I just find it very hard to stop buying a Spider-Man book, because I've been buying them consistently since I was 8 years old. I probably have about 90% of every Spider-Man comic book they've published since 1986 or so. So yeah, it's hard to just stop buying one, especially knowing that they'll probably cancel this 6 months down the road, and then I'll be like, I should have just bought those 6 issues so I have the whole thing, and then I'll go back and buy them anyway. So I'll probably tough it out for a little while longer, but I don't recommend it. The newest issue of Kaiju Max I just picked up this week. Haven't read it yet, but again, highly recommend that series, which is about a bunch of kaijus like Godzilla, King Kong, that sort of creature, living on a Supermax prison. So that's why it's called Kaiju Max. It's good. It's fun. I picked this up, and I don't know if I really should have bothered, because it was kind of expensive. It was $5.99 American, and again, in Canada, that gets bumped up to probably cost $8 or so. But I mentioned in a previous video that IDW's Transformers universe just ended. So they got the Transformers license 13 years ago, and they've been putting out Transformers comic books consistently for 13 years. They've built a very expansive universe, way beyond anything Marvel had done in the 80s or Dreamwave had done in the 2000s. Just hundreds of comic books, I think, all told. And it had wrapped up. I was sad to see it go, because they'd done a lot of fun stuff. And this is just the Historia here. It's not a comic book per se. It's just a... put these down here for a second. It's just a history of... a summary of everything that's happened. in chronological order. And when you bought these comic books, you weren't necessarily getting the story in chronological order because they would put miniseries set in the past and whatnot. So I just kind of thought, you know what? Even though I have all these comic books that this is based on, it's been more than a decade, and I would just kind of like to have this thing all in one piece without having to go to Wikipedia, say. And it was actually only after reading this, which it was a pretty dense read, it took a while to get through, that I realized, you know, even though I'm sad to see this universe come to an end, it's maybe not a bad thing, because it was getting pretty convoluted, and this reminded me of that. There's just so much going on. You know, these characters are supposed to be millions of years old, so there's tons of history. I'm sure they could have kept telling some good stories for a while, but I am excited to see what they're going to do now that IDW is launching a new Transformers universe starting from scratch. So yeah, it was nice to get that just as a reminder of everything I had been through with the Transformers. So yeah, if you would like something like that too, then I guess I recommend it. But yeah, for the price, you could probably just go to Wikipedia if you wanted a summary of everything that had gone on in the IDW comic books. Or better yet, if you're a newbie, just start with the new stuff. And a couple trade paperbacks I've got here as well. So I just picked up the Defenders. So this wasn't really a mini-series. It was solo issues focusing on each member of the Defenders. So Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer, Hulk, and Namor. So I believe what it was is there was an issue focusing on each of the four, and then an issue where they all had to team up as the Defenders. Once again, I actually haven't read it yet. I haven't even flipped through it, but I'm excited to read it. I think there's some talented people working on it, and I really like some of these characters. Silver Surfer being one of my all-time favorites, but I like Namor quite a bit too. So yeah, let's see how that goes. I'll maybe keep you posted, or you can ask me in the comments if you really want to follow up on it. I bought Sleepwalker recently. And this is a character that I liked in the 90s when they first introduced him. And, you know, since his comic book got canceled after about maybe 30 issues or something, way back in like the very early 90s, he hasn't been around much. He pops up every once in a while, especially in these big crossovers. He's often a background character in something like the Secret Wars or something. But he hasn't had a book in ages. And so this was a 4-issue miniseries that tied into the Infinity Wars storyline. And the artwork is nice. It was nice seeing this character again. It was 4 issues. But I'll be honest, this wasn't the best. It was kind of confusing, maybe because I haven't read the Infinity Wars storyline. And I'm not really interested in reading it. It hasn't gotten the best reviews, and it didn't look all that interesting. And yeah, so I just got this. I kind of knew it might be confusing knowing it was tied into a book that I didn't read. And yeah, it does. It's kind of all over the place and pretty forgettable. Like, I'll stick this on my shelf, and I don't think I'll ever want to read it again. It looks really nice. Todd Knock, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but yeah, he was the artist on this. And I've liked him for years. He started out on this book called Wild Guard, which was his creator-owned book. And yeah, if you've never heard of Wild Guard, I highly recommend you check that out. But yeah, the Sleepwalker book, unless you're a diehard Sleepwalker fan like I am, you could probably pass on this because it's nothing special. And lastly, I got the latest trade of The Walking Dead. So this is up to volume 31 now. So that's pretty crazy that this book has been running as long as it has. And I don't know, at this point, I guess you're either a fan of this or you're not. I know the show the viewership has dropped substantially. Some people I know that started watching the show saying they don't like the show anymore. They had to stop watching because nothing was happening. It was boring, and they were killing characters that they liked. And yeah, if that's how you feel about the show, then that's probably how you'll feel about the comic books. Because, again, this here is 6 issues. And not much of anything happens in here. It's a whole lot of talking heads. You know, they found a new community and they're getting integrated together. And can they trust these people? And yeah, I enjoy it. This book has kind of always been a slow burn. You know, there's some crazy battles here and there. But it's mostly about people. And I really like the conversation. So even though a lot of people probably read this and complain nothing's happening, there is character development happening. And yeah, I don't know, if you've liked Walking Dead, I find it weird that people have, walked away from it thinking like, it got boring. I think it's pretty much the same as it's always been. It's still a quality book. It does suck when they kill off characters you like, and because I only buy it in this format, 6 months go by before I pick up Walking Dead again. And nowadays, every time I open it, I'm always like, who's this character again? I don't remember a lot of these characters because they're not as memorable as, say, Glenn and Andrea or whatever. So it takes me a while to remember who these characters are when I pick up one of these things. But yeah, I still enjoy it. So that's it for comic books. All right, so that's the end of this kind of general episode. I think I did run longer than I intended. Oh well, not too many people are going to watch this anyway. But if you did like it, please hit the like button. If you have any comments or suggestions on how I could make these episodes more interesting, then please let me know in the comments below. And yeah, that's it. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.